The Girl Who Burned the Episode 7. Why do you sound like you're saying goodbye? Marin whispered. I'm not saying goodbye. I have faith in us, Luca replied, but even I was unconvinced. What's the plan? Logan asked, looking at Kieran. Remember how I told you that the rogues were working with me? Kieran began. Everyone nodded. Well, here's the plan. The rogues and I are going to meet the hunters at our training spot. We'll lead the hunters there. We've already convinced them that we've seen werewolves in this area. As much as you will hate to hear this, we are going to try our best not to injure any humans. This is important. If we harm or kill any of them, the town will have reason to hunt us down. These hunters have families and loved ones too. This may not make sense to some of you. You're probably wondering why we should spare their lives when they haven't given us a chance. But that is precisely why we are going to convince them that we mean them no harm. We're not resorting to violence straight away. Once war begins, it is hard to end. We refuse to put our packs in that kind of danger. We're going to make an agreement to live peacefully among them. Therefore, we will lead the hunters into the open field, where we will stand in our human forms. It's risky. It isn't safe, but it's safer than approaching them in wolf form. If they do attack, we have enough rogues to disarm each hunter. There are about 20 hunters and 15 werewolves. If they shoot, I trust you to use your werewolf abilities to move out of the way as quickly as possible. Be alert. Be prepared. If they harm the rogues or you, that is when we attack, Kieran finished. We stared at him, mouth slightly agape. He wanted us to just stand there. That would be practically signing our death warrants. You want us to just stand there? Brielle blurted out. Yes, Kieran sighed. I knew it would be hard to convince you guys. How do you know the rogues won't turn their backs on us? Damien asked. After all, nobody should trust a rogue. I agree with him on that, Beck added. The Alpha Rogue is my cousin. A larger group of rogues attacked his pack in North Carolina. Out of 80 people, only 20 made it out alive, Kieran stated reluctantly. We gasped, each of us looking horrified. They diminished that rogue group, and those 20 werewolves have lost everything. They're going to join our pack. They heard about the hunters and want to help. Is there no other way to approach this situation? Roman piped up. We don't have time to think of another solution, Luca answered tiredly. Have you found a way to protect ourselves from the wolfsbane? Marin whispered, looking at her feet. The memories were clearly still fresh in her mind. Unfortunately, we cannot do anything about these weapons. Kieran tried to keep his voice steady, but it trembled at the end. The only thing protecting us from the wolfbane is ourselves. So be alert. Be prepared. I trust all of you. When you're in doubt, remember why you're fighting in the first place. Good luck to us all. It was late when everyone headed home to bed to get some rest. However, I doubt any of us will sleep well tonight, knowing the attack is approaching. We couldn't even devour our dinner like we usually do. The silence at the table was sickening. We were all drowning in our own thoughts. This was the first quiet dinner I had experienced with the Eclipse and Moonfire pack. Would we be lucky enough to have another dinner together? I refused to dwell on the outcome of the situation. The more I thought about it, the more scared I became. What I should be focusing on was the problem itself and how we were going to solve it. I couldn't sleep. It felt hot and stuffy in my room. I tossed and turned, causing the blankets and pillows to fall onto the floor. After several minutes, I groaned and got up. Before I knew it, I was standing in front of Kieran's door. I knocked softly on it and whispered, "Kieran, it's me." "Come in," he replied. I slowly opened the door, inhaling his strong, mouth-watering scent. Worry lines creased my forehead when I saw him sitting on his bed with his head in his hands. I shuffled my feet all the way over to sit next to him. I couldn't find the right words. I didn't want to tell him that he shouldn't worry so much. Besides, that wouldn't have been such great advice at the time, especially since I was worried too. "Hey," I said, playing with his black hair. I wanted to take Kieran's mind off this whole problem, if only for a few minutes. "What do you call a fat psychic?" "What?" he muttered, looking up at me. Dark bags were visible under his blue eyes. His black hair was messy, as if he had been running his hands through it all day. He was still wearing the same clothes as earlier, dark jeans that suited him well and a button-up shirt. I gave him a small smile. "A fortune teller." The corners of his lips twitched. He shook his head. "You're lame, babe." "I'm cooler than you'll ever be," I joked. Kieran snorted. When he didn't say anything else, I spoke again. "I know this is such a stupid question, but it never hurts to ask. Are you okay?" Kieran sighed and looked at me. I felt a pang in my chest when I saw the broken look on his face. He looked away and stared at the carpet between his feet. "I'm freaking scared," he murmured. "I'm scared that my sister will get hurt again. I'm scared that the plan won't work. I'm scared of failing you guys. I'm scared to lose any of you. I'm scared that my friends won't make it out alive and it'll be all my fault." My heart broke. "Look," I said sternly, grabbing his face between my hands. "It's okay to be scared, Kieran. Just because you're an alpha doesn't mean you have to suppress all your emotions for business reasons. We all make mistakes, and we'll all stand by you no matter what." "I'll be okay, I'll make sure of it. Promise me, Talia," Kieran said seriously, rubbing the small of my back with his warm hand. "That you'll be okay." "I promise, Kieran," I whispered. "If I don't make it out alive, just know that I love you and always will," Kieran whispered brokenly. "Don't say that," I gasped. I could feel my eyes filling with tears at the way he was doubting himself. "Don't you dare say or think that, Kieran Redford." I studied his face. I traced my index finger down the side of his face, over his cheekbones, and along his jawline. Finally, I lightly touched the scar on his bottom lip. "We'll be fine as long as we're careful," I whispered. Kieran didn't say anything. Instead, he pushed his forehead against mine and stared at me with his intense blue eyes. I shivered when he pressed his lips softly against mine. He groaned when I bit down on his bottom lip and sucked on it. His hands gripped my hips as I let him in. His tongue danced with mine, setting off fireworks on my taste buds. The warmth of his body was addictive. His scent was mouth-watering. I needed to get closer to him. There was too much space between us. There was too much clothing between us. I cursed my perverted mind, but I wanted more. I moved one of my legs over to the other side of him and straddled his waist. He grunted as our bodies pressed flush against each other. I tangled my fingers in his black hair while he cupped my buttocks. I smirked against his lips when I felt him become excited. My fingers fumbled with the top buttons of his shirt. Once I had unbuttoned the first few, he pulled off his shirt and threw it to the ground. He wasted no time in crashing his lips back onto mine. I still couldn't get enough. I wanted him. My mark was burning. There was a throb between my legs. Kieran ran his hands down my bare legs. I shivered. He moved his lips along my jawline and down the column of my neck, sucking and biting. Nibbling my earlobe, he whispered, "Your scent is driving me crazy." I moaned softly as he sucked on my neck. I threw my head back, grinding my hips against his involuntarily. He growled, gripping my hips tighter, and turned us around so that my back was flat against the soft mattress. He hovered above me, pressing his lips against mine. Every kiss with Kieran was amazing. Each one felt 10 times better than the last. With every brush of his lips, he showed passion, hunger, want, longing, love and many more emotions. I felt him shiver as I ran my hands down his muscular abdomen. His warm hands roamed up my shirt. He was taking his time. He was teasing me. Groaning, I pulled my shirt off and threw it on the floor. Kieran looked at me with swollen lips. His blue eyes were dark with desire and love. He stared into my eyes. "God, I'm the luckiest man in the world," he groaned. I laughed. "Gosh, I love that laugh," he muttered, nuzzling my neck before crashing his lips onto mine once again. He pulled away once more. "Talia, if I'm pushing you, tell me. I don't want to risk losing you again." My heart shattered into a million pieces. He thought he had lost me the first time, but that had been entirely my fault. I let him believe that he had. It wasn't his fault. Tonight, I was going to prove to him that it wasn't his fault. I was going to show him how much I missed him and how much I loved him. I'm going to show him that I'm all his. I was going to apologize for my mistakes. Tonight, I was going to make it up to him. I bit my lip seductively and motioned for him to come closer. I didn't know where this sudden burst of confidence had come from, but I think Kieran liked it. He leaned in. I scratched his muscular back with my nails and whispered things that are better left unsaid. Let's just say I told him exactly what I wanted him to do to me. He pulled away when I had finished. His dark eyes widened, and if possible, they darkened further. He growled before pressing his lips hungrily to mine. Soon, all of our clothes were on the ground, and he kissed my mark once again. "I love you, Kieran," I whispered breathlessly. "I love you too, Talia, so much," he mumbled against my neck before entering me. That night was amazing. It was 10 times better than the first time we made love. For one night, we forgot all about our problems. All I could think about was Kieran. My hands trembled as I climbed out of my Mercedes. I was sure the news had reached my mum, Elias and Tasha, but I knew I still had to tell them myself. I also knew how they would react. They weren't going to like the news very much. Kieran noticed me stalling. "Talia," he said, taking my trembling hands in his. He kissed my palms. "You'll do fine. Your family has always been so understanding. Would you like me to come in with you?" I shook my head. "I think I should do this on my own," I replied. "It's a family issue." "Okay, if you need me, I'll be in the car." I nodded and pecked his lips. As I walked towards the double doors, I started spacing out. I was forgetting what exactly it was that I was going to tell them. We all knew how it felt to have to tell our families bad news. It could be getting a bad grade at school, not being allowed to date someone, or breaking your mother's favorite glass bowl. In this case, I was practically telling them that I might die, and that I wanted to see them before that happened. I didn't want Kieran to come inside with me. Many things could go wrong. Elias would probably rip his head off for letting me fight in this fight. My mother would probably do the same. Kieran would cause a riot at home, and that was the last thing I needed at a time like this. "Hey guys, I'm here," I yelled when I finally opened the door. I heard footsteps running hurriedly down the stairs. Looking up, I saw Tasha, her blonde hair bouncing as she ran down the stairs. She looked at me and pointed a finger. "You're in trouble, Missy," she scolded, folding her arms across her chest. "Your brother is not happy with you at all. Please tell me you refused to join this fight." I looked down at my feet and shook my head slowly. "Oh dear Lord," Tasha gasped. "Please tell me you're kidding." I began, but an intimidating male voice interrupted me. "Talia," my older brother called out. I flinched at his unhappy tone. He stomped down the stairs and stood next to Tasha. He folded his arms across his chest. "Explain now." I liked that about Elias. He always made me explain first before scolding me. He would hear me out before deciding whether to scold me, wave it off or reassure me that he wouldn't tell our parents. "There's not much to say. I'm sure you've heard what's going to happen tomorrow," I shrugged. "I'm going to stand with the Packs." "No," Elias finally said, making it seem like there was no room for discussion. "Elias," I sighed. "I have to do this. I'm doing this for you guys. Talia, Mum is badly injured because of me. If I let you walk into danger and you got hurt, I would never forgive myself. I cannot afford to watch you suffer. And I won't forgive myself if I don't try," I snapped back. "Elias, whether you allow me to or not, I will stand there and I will do this for our family. There is no way you could change my mind." His shoulders slumped tiredly before he sighed heavily. "You're not going to," he said through clenched teeth. His hands balled up into fists. "I'll take your place, Talia. I don't want you to risk your life. You're so young. You're only 2 years older than me." I screamed, trying to reason with him. "Elias, you've fought for our family so many times. It's my turn. You stay here and look after Mum." I walked up to him and threw my arms around my brother's shoulders. "I'll be fine," I whispered. "I promise. You guys are my motivation." As I hugged him, he was stiff. I could tell he was caught up in an internal battle. After a few more reassuring words, Elias's shoulders slumped and he wrapped his arms around me. "I trust you, Talia," he said. "But I'm sorry. I can't approve of this." "I know," I smiled, pulling back. "I knew you wouldn't, and I know you never will. If you don't come out of there alive," his voice trembled. "I don't know what I'll do." "I'll come out alive," I whispered. "If I don't, just know that you are the reason I'm so tough today. I cannot express my gratitude. I'm so blessed to have you in my life. You have taught me so much. I love you, big brother." "I love you too, little sister," he replied solemnly. "Hold your head up high and smile," I recited, remembering the words Elias always used to tell me when I was younger. "Stand tall and stay strong. You are strong." Elias chuckled, even though it wasn't funny, and ruffled my hair. "You too, Talia. I've always admired your bravery," Tasha sighed, hugging me tightly. "Please be careful. You're like the younger sister I never had. I can't imagine life without you." "Tasha, you're like the older sister I've never had," I smiled. "Take care of Elias. I'm glad he has you. He's always worrying about everyone else, but at the end of the day, you're the one with your arms wide open for him. Thank you for everything you have done for this family." After exchanging a few more words with my brother and his wife, I headed up to my mother's room. Elias told me that she had heard the news, and that she wasn't happy about it. My hands were clammy as I turned the doorknob and entered her room. She was doing so much better. Her skin had its natural glow back. Her eyes weren't drooping as much. She didn't look as unwell as last time. When she saw me, she dropped the television remote. She stared at me with sad eyes. Before she could say anything, her shoulders began to shake and she started to sob into her hands. "Mum," I whispered. I sat down next to her on the bed, feeling hesitant. "We could all agree on one thing. Seeing your mother cry is hard. It broke your heart. You didn't know what to do, and before you knew it, you were crying too." Tears streamed down my face as I slung an arm across her shoulder. "Mum," I said once again. "Talia, you are not going out there," she cried. "I will not let my baby get hurt. Mom, please, you will listen to me, understand?" She scolded, gripping my arms. "Please don't do this to me. I'm not doing this to hurt you on purpose, Mum. I'm doing this for you guys. I'm fighting for my family, for my pack, for everything that is right. This is not right. You could die in an instant. I know. You know? Then why are you going to do it?" "I have to," I whispered, feeling tiny under my mum's angry gaze. "You don't have to. We'll all be fine if you just avoid the fight." "Mum, one thing you've taught me is to never run away from my problems. I refuse to do that now. I will not abandon my friends. They'll understand. They have to." My mum's sobs grew louder, causing a tight pain in my chest. "You have to understand, Mum," I sighed. "Please. I have to do this." I sat there, arms wrapped around my mother's small frame. I cried as she sobbed into my shoulder and clutched me closer. Of course, nothing could convince her. I have to protect my baby, she bawled. "Mum, I'm at that age where it's my responsibility to take care of you. It's my turn." My mum kept demanding that I stay with her. She kept scolding me. In the end, she was angry with me. However, she told me that she loved me and that I had better come home alive. They were the motivation I needed to stay alive. They were the reason, along with Kieran and my friends, that I promised myself I would walk out of there alive. I just hope luck will be on my side tomorrow. As I went downstairs, I saw Logan coming up. He smiled at me and ruffled my hair. "Hey, cousin," he said, his tone overly cheery. Logan was always good at hiding his true emotions, but I was good at reading him. I could see fear dancing in his hazel eyes. His fingers tapped rapidly against his leg. "We'll be fine," I reassured him, eyeing his fingers. "Yeah, we will," Logan chuckled nervously. "After all, we are Sinclairs. The Sinclairs always make it out alive." I knew he didn't want to talk about it. Logan was more of a thinker than a talker. So I just smiled and pinched his cheek. When I finally sat in the leather passenger seat of my Mercedes, I sighed heavily. Kieran observed me with calculating eyes before interlocking his fingers with mine. "How was it?" he asked. "Horrible," I groaned. "I feel bad for doing this to them." "I'm sorry," he replied, genuinely apologetic. "If you don't want to do this, just tell me. I would understand." I stroked his cheek with my thumb. "I refuse to back down," I whispered. "I'm doing this for all the right reasons." Staring at Kieran, I couldn't help thinking about the worst-case scenarios. What if I lost him? I'd heard of mates who'd gone through depression after losing their other half. I knew I wouldn't be able to cope. I chose to ignore this and focus on the present. We had to enjoy every precious minute while we had it. We all take time for granted. It's only when life is over that we realize how short it is. I closed my eyes and kissed him on the lips. "I love you too, Talia." The representatives stood in a single file, stretching across the green field. We stood about half a foot apart, stiff and restless. The only sounds that could be heard were the shuffling of our feet and the rustling of leaves. The cold September air bit into my skin, making me feel even more uncomfortable. I was paranoid. Every time I heard the rustling of leaves, I snapped my eyes towards the area where Kieran had told us they would come from. My heart was racing furiously. I constantly wiped my clammy palms on my jumper. My eyes were wide open and alert. I kept shifting my weight from one foot to the other. We all stared at each other silently, wishing each other good luck. I looked at each of them with gratitude. They had all played a big role in my life and given me so many memories. I may not be as close to Damien, Roman, and Avery as I once was. It saddened me to think that we used to be inseparable, yet they allowed pack rivalries to jeopardize our friendship. Nevertheless, I was grateful that they had looked after me during the first few months after I moved to Oakmere. They protected me from the ruthless Kieran. Marin's sapphire eyes were filled with panic. I remembered that same look from approximately 15 months earlier, when she was chained to the wall and covered in injuries. She had been through a lot, particularly with regard to her partner. I admired her strength and maturity in getting back on her feet and living life without wallowing in self-pity. She was one of my best friends, almost like a sister to me. She was loud and girly, and really good at peer mediation. Every girl needs a friend like that, and I was lucky to have her in my life. Cruz was stoic and hid his emotions well. It seemed like just yesterday that Beck and he had raced to my table on my first day at high school. They were the dynamic duo, with Cruz as the clumsy, awkward comedian. Although he could be mean at times, I admired him for his straightforwardness and honesty. Beckett stood protectively next to his friend, arms crossed over his chest. Beck was a happy-go-lucky man with a sense of humor. Although he was the beta, he treated us all with respect. He may have seemed ditzy at first, but he was actually very smart. I remember when he would vent to me about betrayal. I remember his jokes, and how he'd get excited over the smallest things. He appreciated the smallest things in life. Betrayal was the first person to tell me about the arrogant Eclipse Pack. I'd always tease her about being mated to one of them, but that joke always backfired. She found it hard to leave Damien, but she was in love with Beck. She was always the bubbliest in our group of friends, Brielle, me, Lila and Marin, and the weirdest of us all. It was hard not to laugh when you were around her. I remember that Lila was the first person I met at high school. She was part of the unofficial welcoming committee. She was kind-hearted, shy, and logical. She would always remind us to consider the consequences before doing something. She was like the older sister in our group. She was mature for her age. She cared about other people, even strangers. I admired her artistic skills behind the camera lens, and the way she was friendly towards everyone she met. I owed a lot to my cousin, Logan. Not only did he teach me a great deal about healers, he also took time out of his busy schedule to support me here. He didn't need to be here with us today, but he is. Logan was a great man with great ambitions. I remember him telling me the lamest jokes when I was feeling down, and taking me out for coffee when our training was over. He treated me like his little sister. He watched over me and protected me. Although Logan seemed like the perfect person with the perfect life, inside he was broken. His mother committed suicide a week after his father died in a terrible car accident. Despite this traumatic event in his life, he searched for his soulmate. He would often recite one of his favorite quotes, "It is better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all." One day, he will find his soulmate. My best friend, Luca, was more like a brother to me than a friend. He deserves the best for all the great things he has done in his life. I remember the first time I met him. I always smile when I think of the lame pick-up lines he tried to use on me. He stood up for me when Kieran was being unpleasant. He told me the truth instead of sugarcoating things. When I left, he made sure that we stayed in touch. He even drove down just to cheer me up when my heart was breaking into a million pieces. I told him everything, and he told me a lot as well. He was a genuinely happy guy, but people with the biggest smiles often have the saddest stories. He never got along with his parents. They always wanted him to be the perfect child and have a planned life. Eventually, Luca distanced himself from them and hasn't spoken to them for 2 years. It was hard on him. I promised myself that I would never leave him as he never left me. And finally, there's Kieran Redford, my soulmate. He wasn't there at that moment, but I thought about him and wondered if he was okay. It has definitely been a bumpy road for us. Then again, what relationship is perfect? We were far from perfect, and I liked it that way. He was a bit of a jerk the first time I met him, but he became the man I fell in love with. After all, what lasts won't always be easy. I have many memories with him. The arguments we had taught us lessons and strengthened our bond. We had inside jokes that nobody else would understand. His kisses and embraces never failed to win me over. He was amazing, and I was so lucky to have him. Today, he risked everything for everyone, and I couldn't be prouder of him. He was injured, both emotionally and physically, because of me, yet he never abandoned me. He frustrated me so many times, always buzzing around like an annoying bee, but I loved everything about him. I probably sound like an infatuated teenager right now. Sorry, I'm a hopeless romantic. I knew there would be many more bumps in the road ahead, but I promised myself that we would overcome them and that I would not run away again. He means too much to me to lose. As I stood there, feeling restless, I thought about my family too. It was hard knowing that they were probably going crazy with worry about me right now. It was even harder not knowing if I would see them again. I loved them, and I couldn't wish for a better family. They gave me things I didn't deserve. They molded me into the person I am today. This is the least I could do for everything they have done for me. Guys, get ready, I heard Kieran say in my mind. We're almost there. I gulped, clenching my trembling hands into fists at my sides. With one glance at everyone, we exchanged panicked looks. I could hear their frightened voices in my head as they wished each other good luck. None of us dared say goodbye. We had a hard time. Talis, Kieran whispered, but only to me this time. I'm sorry for everything once again. If anything bad happens, Kieran, don't, I replied solemnly. No, Talia, I want you to know. If anything bad happens, just know that I'm sorry I failed to protect you. You're the best thing that has ever happened in my life. Thank you for being you. I want you to know that. It might sound like something from a corny teen film, but it's the truth. I don't think I'll ever tire of saying it, I love you. Kieran, we'll make it out alive, I reassured him. I have faith in us. Thank you for risking everything for us and for everything you do. You're an amazing alpha and an amazing partner. I couldn't wish for better. I love you too, Kier. Never forget that. I heard heavy footsteps and quiet muttering. With my enhanced werewolf abilities, it was easy to pick up. Once their footsteps grew louder, I knew the others could hear them, too. They stiffened and shuffled closer to each other involuntarily. I could practically hear everyone gulping nervously. I could feel the panic rolling off them in waves. I was frightened too, of course. We're near, Kieran warned. We'll be out in the clearing in less than 10 seconds. My breath hitched and my blood ran cold when 30 hunters emerged from the woods behind Kieran and stepped into the open field. I could smell the werewolves lingering amongst them. I could even pick them out. I watched them all with calculating eyes, ready for the first shot. They stood in a cluttered group, holding their weapons in their dirty hands. They were obviously surprised. They hadn't expected us to show up here. In fact, Kieran had told them that they would be crossing this land without encountering us for another mile. They moved their guns and aimed their rifles at us. We crouched down and growled at them as a warning. The rogues growled too, snatching the weapons out of each hunter's hand with superhuman speed. The hunters groaned and screamed when they realized that their fellow hunting pals were actually wolves. The sound of a gunshot echoed through the empty field. My eyes widened as I observed the scene in front of me. A human hunter groaned in pain and hopped on one foot. I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw that he had accidentally shot himself in the foot while trying to grab his weapon back from a fiery redhead. Once the rogues had grabbed all their weapons, the hunters shrank back, preparing to run. However, Simon held up his hand and ordered, "Stay. We didn't come here to run. If you run, they will chase you like dogs." We growled at him, but he glared at us hatefully. "What is going on?" another hunter asked, retreating from a growling, blonde-haired woman. Kieran walked out onto the open field. He stood beside Luca, who positioned himself in front of us. "Kieran." Simon's eyes widened. "Son, what are you doing?" "I'm Alpha Kieran of the Eclipse Pack," growled Kieran, crossing his arms over his chest. "Looks like you guys weren't so smart after all." "Kids!" Hank gasped, pointing a finger at Logan and me. I rolled my eyes. "Looks like you can't trust anyone," Simon sneered. "We're not looking for danger," Luca said calmly. One of the hunters scoffed and glared at all of us. "Yeah, right," he spat. "You're animals." "We're humans," Kieran stated. "We're just supernatural." The rogues had moved to join us. There was a big space in the middle of our groups. It was quiet as we stared each other down. Finally, Kieran spoke again. "We won't harm you," he said, ignoring the angry shouts from the hunters. "We just want to make an agreement." "An agreement?" Simon laughed. "Ha! That's hilarious, boy. Why would we want to make an agreement with dogs? What have we done to you?" Luca snarled. The wolves agreed with him, growling at the hunters. "You've killed and injured our citizens," a hunter cried. "We've killed or harmed them because they harmed us first," Beck yelled. "We were acting in self-defense. By using your vicious animal side." Another hunter scoffed. "You were using weapons that could kill us," Damien replied. "We've done nothing. We didn't start this war. You humans started this, and I have to say you are more ruthless than us dogs." The hunters shouted nasty replies to that. We shouted back at them at every comment. It was more of a debate than actual fighting. "Enough!" Kieran growled at us all. His voice was so loud and intimidating that the hunters stopped too. Soon, they started their banter again. "Stop," Simon ordered calmly. He smiled menacingly at Kieran. "Now, what agreement would you like to have?" "Get rid of the weapons. We won't harm any humans. It's as simple as that." "The weapons are the real problem here," Kieran stated. "How do we know you'll keep your end of the deal?" Simon barked. The hunters agreed. He didn't give Kieran a chance to reply. "That's right, you won't. You lied to us once before, and we were fools to trust you. So why should we trust you again?" Kieran was cut off when Simon took a gun out of his coat pocket. Soon after, the other hunters followed suit. My eyes widened. We didn't expect that. We crouched down and growled at the brutal weapons in their hands. You didn't expect that, hey? Simon smirked. We knew there was something fishy about these new hunters. We had to be careful just in case. How did I miss that? Kieran said, walking backwards a bit. I'm sorry I failed you guys. 1,000 thoughts swam through my mind. I was too young to die. I had promised my family that I would come back alive. My friends had families waiting for them, too. My life was over. Daddy, a woman yelled. At the sound of her familiar voice, a growl rippled through my chest. Her presence angered my wolf even more. I wasn't the only one who was angry. The other wolves growled too. Pamela, said Simon, lowering his gun when she stood in front of us. What are you doing here? Daddy, don't hurt them, Pamela pleaded, placing her small hand on Kieran's bicep. Kieran flinched away. My growl was low and menacing. Pamela watched him with wide eyes, but waved it off. They've done nothing wrong. She wasn't such a psycho after all. However, I still did not trust her. Despite our newly found dislike of this lady, we kept our mouths shut. Pamela's statement caused her father to laugh. He lowered his gun, as did the other hunters. Pamela, honey, I know you're in love with Kieran, Simon said. But they're nothing but vicious wolves. I know, she muttered, scuffling her feet. You know? Simon asked angrily. You chose them over your own father. Move, Pamela. This is going to get messy. No, Dad, Pamela said sternly, looking at her father with her big brown eyes. You promised to stop killing werewolves, even if you didn't find what you were looking for. Whatever happened to that? You only want one thing. I know they've betrayed you, but maybe they could help. You're right, Pam. Hunters, lower your weapons, Simon finally conceded after 10 tense minutes of silence. His eyes were hard to read. Kieran, I know you know what I'm looking for. No, Kieran snapped harshly, his eyes blazing with anger. Not a chance. There's no way in hell that's going to happen. The question that had been killing me was finally on the table. What was so important and valuable that Kieran did not want to hand over to the hunters? If he handed it over now, this could end peacefully. I knew he had it because he didn't say, I don't have it. Instead, he refused to give it up. Kieran, please, Simon pleaded, his voice full of hurt. He ran his hand through his hair. Do you have a healer amongst you? He looked at all of us. If any of you are healers, or know of any, please help my wife. She's a werewolf and has been suffering from an illness for over 2 years. She will die soon. What on earth was going on? Sitting in Simon's old SUV was awkward to say the least. Simon thumped his fingers on the black steering wheel and hummed an old tune. I kept my eyes on the gravel road ahead while picking at the thread of the faded red seat covers. Hank sat quietly in the back seat between Kieran and Logan. So, he chuckled nervously. He looked ridiculously small next to Logan and Kieran. You guys won't attack us, right? I thought we'd established that, Logan snapped, obviously annoyed. Okay, Hank squeaked, drawing in a shaky breath. My mum would definitely ban me from hunting. You're 31 and you still live with your mother? Kieran asked, shaking his head. And she still tells you what to do. I love my mum, Hank defended. We watch movie together. Approximately 1 hour earlier, Kieran, please, Simon pleaded, his voice full of hurt. He ran his hand through his hair. Do you have a healer amongst you? He then looked at all of us. If any of you are healers, or know of any, please help my wife. She's a werewolf, and she's suffered from an illness for over 2 years. She will die soon. What on earth was going on? Once he had finished speaking, I glanced at Logan. He was staring at me, his eyebrows drawn together in confusion. There were a lot of questions I wanted to ask, but so little time. I was beyond confused. Pamela told me her parents were divorced. Was that one big lie? Was it her psychotic side speaking? If her mother was a werewolf, wouldn't Pamela be one too? Even if her father were a pure human, their offspring would still be a werewolf as long as one of the parents carried werewolf blood. Why did Simon possess such weapons if his wife was a werewolf? Wasn't he afraid she'd get hurt? Was that the reason she was ill? From being around wolfsbane so much? Was she angry with him for possessing those weapons? Kieran was wrong to make the decision without consulting me first. I knew he knew exactly what Simon was asking even before he brought it up today. He knew I could heal werewolf illnesses, but nothing else. Illnesses such as cancer and HIV were incurable. Healers could only heal illnesses passed down through werewolves. No, Kieran said again, shaking his head furiously. I will not put her in danger. She's your mate, isn't she? Simon asked after a few seconds of quiet contemplation. His eyes lit up as he dropped his gun. Please, Kieran, I'm begging you. You know what it's like to have a mate, a soulmate. You'd hate to see her on the verge of dying. Simon's voice cracked at the end, and he frowned. I could tell he was holding back tears and trying to keep his composure. However, the more he spoke, the more evident it became that he was breaking down. I couldn't respond at first. It was too hard. I was too shocked to speak. I could tell that the others were just as confused as I was. My mind was silent. I couldn't hear their voices. Simon looked at each of us with pleading eyes. When he looked at me, even for a moment, my heart stopped. Should I help him? Was he lying? What if he killed me after I'd helped him? Would he? Does he hate all werewolves except his wife? I know I've done a lot of bad things, Simon began. But wouldn't you stop at nothing to help the one you love? You wouldn't believe me if I told you that my wife is a werewolf, given that I create such vile weapons. Once my wife explained how they worked, I tried so hard to find a healer. One day, I decided to visit a werewolf pack off the coast of Vermont. They attacked me. That's the reason for my scar. Since then, I've made weapons to protect myself. But that doesn't explain why you kill werewolves for fun, Beck spat disgustedly. Your wife is a werewolf, yet you kill them with no remorse. I know, Simon sighed. After I talked to a few more werewolves, I started to get frustrated. I knew they were lying when they said there were no healers in the world today. My frustration led to killing. I regret it. I don't expect you to understand. Please help me. I've only come across one healer, but she couldn't help. She only healed disheartening emotions. I swear to you that I stopped killing werewolves after that moment. You guys attacked us twice, Beck cried, pointing at Brielle. Brielle shrank back from the unwanted attention. You stabbed my mate. I don't know if you've noticed, but we tried talking to you first. But once you smelled the wolfbane, you automatically growled at us. You circled us and bared your canines. We were scared, Simon stated, as if it were obvious. So we had to attack. We apologize. But you never gave us a chance. Is this true? I asked the pack through the mind link. I wouldn't know, they replied, because I haven't been present during these attacks. There was silence before Lila replied. Now that I've thought about it, they have tried to tell us something. Our minds would focus on the weapons, not the people, she gasped. Now I feel horrible. It's okay, Lila, I said, when nobody else spoke up. I would have reacted the same way if I had seen deadly weapons. I'm going to help him, I said quietly when Kieran still refused Simon's offer. Simon even handed his gun over to one of the rogues and revealed that his pockets were empty. He then ordered the other hunters to give up their weapons. What? Everyone responded. No, growled Kieran. No, Talia. Why not? I snapped angrily. It was wrong of you to make my decision for me. I'm your friend. Exactly. You're my friend, not me. No. Kieran, it could all be over if I helped his wife. Why would you want to help her? It was Simon who did wrong, not his wife. Silence. How do you know they wouldn't hurt you? I don't. Then you're not going. You can't stop me. Please don't do this to me, Talia, Kieran pleaded. What if they're lying? What if they hurt you? What if everything goes wrong? Life's full of risks, Kieran, I sighed. I can't waste such beautiful talent. They'll kill you if you don't cure his wife, Kieran said quietly, almost as if it pained him to say the words. I won't allow you to walk into that. I'll take care of it, I replied hastily, putting up my block. There were too many voices in my head. If I tried to explain my point of view, it would take all night. The only quiet one was Logan, who nodded in agreement. I stepped up, ignoring Kieran's warning glances. Simon, I said, clearing my throat awkwardly. His eyes snapped to me. I could see realization swimming in his brown eyes. Everyone watched me silently. Logan stepped beside me, blocking my view of Kieran. Is your wife's illness purely werewolf-related? Yes, he whispered, eyeing me as if I were God, which was very awkward. Her wolf is very sick. We're not sure what it is. We've tried everything to heal her, but nothing has worked. Werewolf illnesses were difficult to diagnose. They were so similar, it was hard to distinguish between them. As a healer, all you had to do was mutter words while waving your hands over the patient's entire body. Talis, Kieran called quietly. My cousin Logan and I will be able to help you, I suggested, ignoring Kieran. But we'll only do it on several conditions. Talia, this is not a good idea, Luca whispered. Anything. I'll do anything, Simon replied eagerly. Your hunters will stay here under the watchful eyes of my friends, I ordered confidently, motioning towards the werewolves. They must hand over all the weapons they possess right now and empty their pockets. Your men will be kept in our conference room until I am sure that you will keep your word. You may take Hank with you if it makes you feel safer. You must also prove that you have no weapons on you or in your car. My friends will destroy the weapons they have collected today. I'm not asking you to destroy all the Wolfbane weapons and plants. I'm afraid it's too late for that. Your men will probably have one hidden under their beds at home for safekeeping. However, I shall warn you. Healing is a gift from the ancient healers. They watch you. If you come after us and try to destroy us after the healing is done, your men and their families will face terrible consequences. There were several gasps from both the hunters and the werewolves. It was true. If a healing was performed under certain terms and conditions, everything agreed upon must be followed. Breaking promises was taboo, especially when something as significant as healing was involved. You will stop selling or creating those weapons, I continued. Finally, I want the werewolves to live peacefully among you. We will not kill or harm you if you do not kill or harm us. It's as simple as that. Once you agree to these terms, there is no turning back. If you break one of these agreements, you will live with the consequences. Believe my words. Someone once became psychotic and committed suicide because they broke a promise, I said seriously. Healing was serious business. Simon looked at his hunters, who nodded slowly in response. There was fear in their eyes, but they looked slightly calmer than before. I suppose it was because I had decided to help them. We were only in this group to help Evelyn, said one hunter, taking his cap off. She's my sister. I'm pretty sure we all agree, said a female hunter, nodding her head. We never meant to harm you, and if you help Evelyn, we'll know your intentions are good. We will leave you alone. After you recite your promise, you swear your lives to the ancients. We cannot control what happens next unless a new agreement is made. This is a serious matter, said Logan. When the hunters nodded, Logan continued. Raise your right hand and say, we agree to the terms and conditions of this agreement. An amazing thing happened next. The hunters stood in a single file including Pamela. They raised their right hands and recited the words. Goosebumps covered my skin. This was my very first agreement. I could feel the ancient healers watching. Great, let's get this show on the road, I grinned. The wolves started patting down the hunters before heading towards the house. I'm coming with you, Kieran stated, leaving no room for discussion. Gripping my hand, he walked beside me as we followed Simon and Hank into the forest towards Simon's car. I simply shrugged, letting Kieran tag along. Simon's car was an old SUV with faded red paint and sunspots. Luca and Beck had inspected it before heading back towards the pack house. Simon smiled as we all piled into the spacious G-Wagon. Inside, there was a radio on the dashboard. The original radio had long since disappeared. A pine-scented air freshener hung from the rear-view mirror. His seatbelts looked dangerously weak. I sat in the passenger seat, bouncing my right leg up and down. Sitting in Simon's old SUV was extremely awkward. Simon thumped his fingers on the black steering wheel and hummed along to an old tune. I fixed my gaze on the gravel road ahead while picking at the thread of the faded red seat covers. Hank sat quietly in the back seat between Kieran and Logan. So, he chuckled nervously. He looked ridiculously small next to Logan and Kieran. You guys won't attack us, right? I thought we'd already established that, Logan snapped, clearly annoyed. Okay, Hank squeaked, drawing in a shaky breath. My mum would definitely ban me from hunting. You're 31 and you still live with your mother? Kieran asked, shaking his head. And she still tells you what to do. I love my mum, Hank defended. We watch Oprah together. My eyes widened in surprise. I turned around to face Hank, only to find that Kieran and Logan were staring at him, looking confused. Hank stared at his feet, chuckling nervously. We won't hurt you, man, sighed Kieran, patting his back. We made an agreement. Right, said Hank, unconvinced, giving a nervous smile. Thank you, Simon whispered. My eyes snapped to him. His expression was relaxed. It was as if a huge weight had been lifted off his shoulders. I couldn't blame him, though. If Kieran was ill and I couldn't help him, I'd do whatever it took to find someone who could. Like Simon, I knew what it was like to love someone, and I didn't want to experience losing that person. Kieran meant a lot to me. I knew Evelyn meant a lot to Simon, too. You're welcome, I smiled, feeling good about myself. I wouldn't want to lose my soulmate either. I met Evelyn 2 years after divorcing my first wife, Pamela's mum. The first time I saw her, I fell in love instantly. She and Pamela are my happiness and my world, Simon said, his voice filled with love and happiness. I wondered if I sounded like that when I spoke about Kieran. His statement answered a lot of questions. Pamela was human. Simon had remarried. It all made perfect sense now. So Pamela likes her stepmother? I asked, surprised that I was actually talking to a man who had almost killed me that day. She's happy if I'm happy, Simon shrugged. Pamela suffered a lot when her mother and I divorced. Before we knew it, she was depressed and constantly felt lonely. The doctors prescribed her medicine. After the healer I told you about had healed her, she convinced us that she was okay without the medication. I didn't realize the emotional healing would last that long. There was another answer to my question. I felt a sudden sympathy for Pamela, but it quickly went away. That was why she was so clingy and attached to Kieran. She was looking for something absent from her own home. I wanted to tell Simon that Pamela had lied when she said she was fine. She wasn't. Emotional healing doesn't last that long. It's only temporary, like a drug high. However, I didn't want to give Simon more to worry about right now. It wasn't my place to tell him. It was Pamela's duty to tell her father the truth. Evelyn was pretty, with long honey blonde hair that framed her heart-shaped face. Her eyes were a dark green. For a werewolf, she was terribly skinny. Her translucent skin was not at all healthy. There was a limp to her walk. I cringed when she struggled to lie down on the bed. Talia, you've got this, Logan encouraged her as Kieran collected Simon's weapons. Just remember what you've learned. Logan, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you, I said, smiling as I gave my cousin a big hug. I think I found her, Logan whispered in my ear. It took me a second to realize what he was saying. What? I exclaimed. Suddenly, I felt overwhelming happiness. I couldn't stop the huge smile stretching across my face. I punched Logan's arm. You'll have to explain later. I bent down next to Evelyn, who had a small smile on her face. God bless you, Talia, she whispered breathlessly. I'm blessed that God has led me to Simon. He found you. I smiled. Evelyn, he loves you very much. Ah, Evelyn laughed tiredly. That's the beauty of soulmates. You know what true love is. Anyone who has found it shouldn't let it go. Her words made me reflect on my turbulent past with Kieran. I shouldn't have let him go like that. It was a decision I would regret for the rest of my life. I was lucky to find him. I was lucky to still have him. I've learned that if you're lucky enough to find love, you should cherish it. That is so very true, I chuckled, before placing my hands on Evelyn's head. I need you to relax and close your eyes. Think of happy thoughts and positive outcomes. Don't think too hard about the situation at hand. Think about what would happen if you were healthy again. Imagine skydiving with Simon or shopping with Pamela. Hilatu alataru sikaru. Hilatu alataru sikaru. Hilatu alataru sikaru, the words rolled off my tongue. I was so much better at healing that I could do it with my eyes open. I smiled when I saw that it was working. Evelyn's color was returning. Her lips and cheeks were regaining their normal rosy color. The dark circles under her eyes had faded slightly. She looked healthier and stronger. You can open your eyes now, I whispered once the process was complete. Evelyn opened her eyes easily. She sat up slowly, not moaning in pain. Her eyes widened before she threw her skinny arms around me. I don't know what to say. I feel better. I literally felt my illness go away. It felt like water rinsing dirt off my hands, she gushed. Even her voice sounded better. Thank you, Talia. I mean it. Okay, I did enough to heal the illness, but you'll still have a fever. Eat the right food to restore the nutrients in your body. Rest up. You'll be fine in no time, I said. Evelyn nodded happily. You're amazing. I feel so much better. I feel so alive. I haven't felt like this in a long time. Thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough. Epilogue. I laughed as Evelyn continued her happy banter. Simon soon joined us in the living room. Together, they showered me with praise for my work. Each time they finished a sentence, they shouted out their appreciation. These moments made me proud to be a healer. We were a rare species of werewolf that was supposed to have become extinct centuries ago. Gradually, we were proving that our intentions were good. We were created to help, not to cause danger. Gradually, the werewolves were also proving that they didn't want to harm humanity. I owe you guys a lot, Simon said, having profusely apologized for everything he had done. However, we didn't quite trust him yet or accept his apology. So, Can we call a truce? I smiled at Kieran, who looked at Simon's outstretched hand before shaking it. Truce? Kieran said, smiling. Did I tell you how lucky I am to have a healer as a mate? Kieran mumbled, nuzzling my neck. I laughed and ruffled his black hair. I guess luck was on both our sides. Kieran smiled and crashed his warm lips on mine. It felt right to be kissing my mate under the stars on our favorite spot on the porch steps. Then again, everything always felt right with Kieran. And it always will be. Years later, hey cutie, I cooed to the 1-year-old in Lila's arms. She looked up at me with her adorable, crystal blue eyes. I held out my hands. Come to Auntie Talia. Come on, honey, Lila encouraged her daughter. She won't hurt you. But baby Zoe looked away, burying her face in the crook of her mother's neck. Lila sighed and started bouncing up and down. I just chuckled and tickled Zoe's small back. She's too attached to Luca and me, Lila said, rolling her eyes. The only other person she'd go to is Kieran. She's too cute, I cooed. Just like her father, Luca said, slinging his arm around Lila. He picked Zoe up and smiled at her. Did Aunt Talia scare you again? She is scary, hey. I smacked Luca's shoulder. He stuck his tongue out at me before taking Zoe into the kitchen to feed her. Lila rolled her eyes once more. Luca is spoiling her too much, Lila said, smiling slightly. Well, she is his very first princess, I laughed. Talia, a female voice yelled. My eyes widened as Brielle came running into the dining room. She wrapped her arms around me. It was somewhat difficult to hug her back with her baby bump. Congratulations, college graduate. You can finally be a teacher. Thanks, I replied, smiling at my achievement. Brielle. Beck entered the room with a panicked expression. You're squishing my baby. Shush, Brielle said, pulling away and rubbing her belly. He's my baby too. It's going to be a girl, Beck argued. It'll be a boy. I want a boy first, said Brielle angrily. Then Zoe and he can be together. Zoe is going to be 2 years older than our baby, Beck cried. Women are so confusing. Beck. Knox called from the living room. You're missing the football game, man. Where have you been? Before Brielle could respond, Beck hurried into the room with the other men. A few seconds later, Marin joined us in the kitchen. We all stared at the living room door as the men started screaming and shouting. We simply shook our heads. Hey, pretty ladies, Marin greeted us. How are my best friends? Lacking sleep, Lila replied. Be warned, Brielle. Once your baby is born, they will keep you awake. We all laughed, knowing how much Brielle cherished her sleep. I'll let Beck take care of the night shift, Brielle joked. She turned to Marin with waggling eyebrows. How was your first anniversary with your husband? Marin blushed. Brielle winked. I'm afraid that is confidential information. We all laughed. Brielle and Beck were the first of our friends to get married. They tied the knot 2 years ago. A few months later, Lila and Luca also got married. Last year, it was Marin and Knox's turn. Logan married his spunky red-headed partner about a year and a half ago. Logan moved back home with his wife. I decided to stay here. I'd occasionally drive down to visit Logan. I was thrilled that he had found a partner. She was everything he was looking for. What about you? Brielle scolded, pointing her finger at me. You're already 25, woman. You met Kieran about 9 years ago. He needs to fertilize the soil or glue a ring to your finger. What on earth are you waiting for? I blushed and shuffled my feet. Everyone else was either married or had kids. Kieran and I were in a serious relationship, but we had never discussed getting married or having children. We just went with the flow. Usually, it didn't bother me. However, now that I was 25 and all my friends were starting lifelong relationships and families, I wanted that too. I didn't know how to respond to Brielle's question. But I didn't have to. At that moment, I was grateful that a familiar brown-haired, brown-eyed boy ran in. My 4-year-old nephew threw his arms around my waist. "Auntie Talia," he exclaimed, smiling up at me. "Hey, monster," I said, ruffling his hair. "Where's Uncle Kieran?" he asked curiously after hugging Brielle, Marin, and Lila. "He's in the living room watching football with the guys." "Cool," he yelled, running into the living room. My mum came into the kitchen, carrying a 2-year-old in her arms. I took my nephew into my arms and cuddled him close. His curly brown hair peeped out of his small baseball cap. "How's my little baby?" Benjamin took the ball. "All gone," said Taylor, pouting. His speech was improving. "Auntie Talia will buy you another one," I promised, kissing his cheek. "Hey, Mum," I said. "Hey, Talia," my mother responded, flinging her arms around my shoulders. "Congratulations on your graduation." I laughed. "Thanks, Mum." "Where are Elias and Tasha?" "Still at work," my mum sighed. "I swear they work too hard." "They'll be here in a few minutes." "Good," Brielle groaned. "I'm starving." "You're always starving," Marin teased, poking her belly. "Pregnancy is scary." "Everything is scary to you," Lila replied. My phone notification went off. I took it out of my pocket and read the text message. "Hey Talia, sorry I couldn't make it today. Congrats on your graduation. I'm still in France with my girlfriend. Her parents are so creepy. They own porcelain dolls. I'll make it up to you." Cruz. I smiled and chuckled at Cruz's text message. Just 3 months ago, Cruz found his soulmate. Ever since then, he's become a total softie. He's agreed to meet her parents this month. He said that she was very different from her creepy family. Once everyone had arrived, we sat together at the long table in the Pack dining room. It was loud, as usual. This time, Zoe was crying. Meanwhile, Benjamin and Taylor were making aeroplane noises at the other end of the table. People talked here and there. Beck and Brielle continued their usual banter. "Congratulations to our graduate," Lila called out, raising her glass. "Talia, you'll be a great teacher." There were cheers and applause. I smiled at my friends and family. It was nice to be surrounded by loved ones. I wished it could stay like this forever. Kieran squeezed my hand and smiled at me. Congrats, babe, he whispered. You'd be one hell of a ex-teacher. I rolled my eyes, but the smile on my face lingered. Now that you're a teacher, could I ask you something? He asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. The silence that followed was suspicious. Their faces were excited and mischievous. Go for it, I replied, shrugging. Kieran smiled and kissed my cheek. I was taken aback when Kieran dropped down onto one knee and dug into his pocket for a velvet black box. I laughed when he scratched the back of his neck before opening the jewelry case. I could feel happiness and love bursting inside me. Before I knew it, tears of joy were rolling rapidly down my cheeks. I giggled and wiped the tears away with the sleeve of my shirt. Kieran opened the box. Inside was a simple yet elegant diamond ring. His eyes bored into mine. I would never tire of his beautiful blue eyes. He held my face in his other hand. Talia Ainsley, I love you so very much, he said loudly and clearly. I want to spend my whole life with you. You've invaded my heart. I know. That did indeed sound excessively cliched. So, will you marry me? I didn't hesitate. Yes, is the answer. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.